Number 5, get into the field. Now that seems self-evident to me. Why would
because
you have a
I work
salesperson who would not go into the field?
No, the sales manager.
Oh, okay.
The sales manager needs to get in the field partly to make sure the salespeople are getting in the field.
I understand. Okay.
You can't lead where you won't go. You can't teach what you don't know. So if you're not out there, and here's what happens. I don't have to carry the bag anymore. I'm a sales manager. I can manage this thing by the numbers. And you know what? I found it was awfully comfortable at my desk when I was a sales manager. You've got to get out in the field, and you've got to get real-time observation of what people do. Now, people say to me, how often should I be out in the field? And I say, I can't answer that. How many salespeople do you have? Where are they geographically dispersed? It's how often should your salesperson see you? And they should see you several days a month, somewhere, somehow. And one of the things we teach in our sales management training is how to do it in such a way that you don't get set up, because it's easy to get set up. But the bottom line is you need to get into the field all the time.
And what are you physically doing? Are you physically accompanying your
accompanying the salesperson
as they make a call?
Yes.
Isn't that embarrassing? I mean, would you do that with a peak performer?
Absolutely.
Isn't that embarrassing to a peak performer?
Here's what happens with a peak performer. Part of the things that we've discovered through the years is that peak performers crave attention, and they like improving their game. And the only thing that it takes is just a slight twist on the carburetor screw for them to be really, really great. Now, what you want to do is you need to understand, you need to tell the prospect or customer why you're there, and the salesperson does that. And then what you do is you either do the sales call so they can observe you if they have less experience. You do it together, and you pick it up at certain pieces. So I may say, why don't you handle the meat and let me work on the probe, because that's an area where you're a little bit weaker. Or you're an observer, in which case you don't get involved, and you better be able to sit there and watch this thing slide down the tubes. Okay? Because when you jump in, it becomes a cooperative. Now, these are all skills that can be taught, and we teach to sales managers. But I'm going to tell you, in the absence of those, here's what happens. You're the last one standing, Mr. or Ms. Jones. You're the sales manager. And just because someone was a great salesperson doesn't mean they'll be a great sales manager either.
Number 6, hold salespeople accountable for actions and for results.
Remember I talked about the peak performers at one point? Peak performers tend to be held accountable for their own actions and their own results. Let me give you some examples. You go to the doctor, you have an A1C test. You go to the doctor, you have a cholesterol test. You get on the scale and you see how much you weigh. You go in and you get a blood test, etc., etc., etc. Medical professionals force you to be accountable because the results are there. They're pretty clear. Here's what happens with far too many sales organizations. They either let things slide. There's no goal setting of any kind of meaningful relevance. There's no way to track someone against those goals. So therefore, what happens is they're not accountable, and so consequently, they just keep going year after year after year. Our salespeople here, every month, we have top to bottom listing, not only by dollar, but by volume, by percentage toward the goal for the year, percentage of goal for the month, how much their monthly sales quota has gone up or down based upon how well they've done, and it's for everybody to see. We hold them totally accountable for their own actions and their own results.
And what percent of sales operations do you suppose do that?
Most don't. I've trained, listen to this one, somewhere around 10,000 sales managers and over 500,000 salespeople myself. Listen, this is not anecdotal. I've been around for almost 30 years doing this. They don't.
And our last of the insider secrets of building a top-performing sales team, jettison the poor performers. And we've been talking about that all along.
It's painful. It's difficult. You want to go a little bit longer with them than you think, because what you want to do is you want to have people say they gave that person every possible chance, and it's about time that somebody took some action on them. Because what happens is it affects the entire sales team. It affects the morale, but eventually you're going to have to make it. Now, I say sooner rather than later in sales, because it's such a quantifiable kind of thing. If the truth be known, in most cases, and I want you to be really honest with me, sales managers, when someone was a bad hire and they can't play, I'll bet you knew it inside of several months.
Oh, I bet.
And one of the principles is never be afraid to face the truth. This cultural thing is important. We had a person here one time that came in with a great degree from a great school. He could talk all the sales talk. His assessment wasn't too bad either until after he left, and then I looked and I found out what I missed. but he was very good at posturing instead of prospecting. So he'd walk around all day with the telephone, and he looked the part, he acted the part. I knew within a month he'd never make it here, and so consequently, he proved that to be true. And I'm no great soothsayer; it wasn't hard to say.
And as we wrap this up, is there what tends to be the tipping point? Is it a certain amount of time? Is it a certain amount of lack of meeting sales goals? Is it an intuitive thing?
The stronger the orientation, here's what it is. You don't want it to be your fault. You give them a strong orientation. You give them a methodology to follow. You have a methodology for keeping them accountable. Then, Rick, it's to your point. It's time and performance. And you have to determine inside of your company, how long does that take? It's all over the lot. Do you have a long sales cycle anyway? Do you have a complex product, a simple product? Is it a relationship? Is it an in-depth product? Is it a transactional product? You have to make that determination, and I'll bet the people watching this who manage salespeople, manage sales teams, have a pretty good idea about what that is for their organization.
Thanks so much, Bill.
Thank you, Rick.